Welcome to the She Slays the Day podcast with Dr. Lauryn Brunslick. Direct, soulful, comedic, advice for female chiropractors' most stagnating questions. Let's talk business, marriage and relationships, momming, and self-development. Here's your host, Dr. Lauryn Brunslick.
Hey everyone, this is Dr. Lauryn, and this is episode 29 of the She Slays the Day podcast. And I am absolutely pumped to be here and doing an intro for this episode because it was a really fun one to do. I enjoyed meeting our guest today, Dr. Nona Djavid. She's cool. Before we get to that, though, I want to give a shout out to my super supportive fangirls and OGs who have signed up for my free weekly Slay email. The fact that you've taken time out of your super busy life to not just sign up, but then to send me texts and emails and DMs, letting me know how much you love them. You guys, it just fills my little Enneagram Type 3 heart. I really, really appreciate it. So keep them coming. So if you're not getting the slays you should be, please check your spam. And if you want to be getting them, go over to sheslayspodcast.com/besties. Or you can click the link in my bio or send me a carrier pigeon asking how to sign up. They're not meant to be like another email because, oh my gosh, right now we're all just getting so many emails with the holidays. It's crazy. I'm not even reading emails from people I like my friends. No, I'm just joking. I swear I'm reading your emails, friends. But it's meant to be short. So it's 3 to 6 sentences long, and it's inspirational, sassy, soulful. It's basically what I would say if you're my best friend calling me on Sunday night, and I would say, this is, girl, get your head out of your ass. You can do this. I believe in you. I love you. So go to sheslayspodcast.com/besties if you're not signed up for those. And if you are signed up, again, check your spam. I don't know how to make it not go to your spam. I think if you go to your spam a couple times and bring it to your inbox, it might train your inbox, but I don't really understand how the internet works. So I wouldn't take that. I would take that with a grain of pennies. No, a penny cents, a grain of salt. Take it with a grain of salt. I don't know how to get me out of your inbox or into your inbox and out of your spam. But hey, while you're on the website, make sure you check out She Slays Savings. You see what I did there? You see how I just smooth transition. It's not that smooth if you point out the transition though. This is what I do in golf. Anybody who has golfed with me knows I'm a terrible golfer, and I'm very upset that I'm a terrible golfer. Because I'm competitive and I don't like to suck at things. But anyway, so anytime I swing, I have this problem where I always top the ball. I can never lift it. I'm afraid of my club hitting the ground. And so I always skim over the ball. And a lot of times I just miss the ball completely. And I will always turn to whoever's watching and go, that was a practice shot. So if there's anything that gives away that it was not a practice shot, is announcing that I didn't just miss it. That was a practice shot. I don't know how I got here. So anyways, She Slays Savings. So if you go to our website and click on the tab She Slays Savings, you're going to find both of my favorite chiro artists, Sandy Arthur, who's just killing it. Oh my God. You guys, I just saw on Instagram recently on her stories that someone got a tattoo of her artwork, yo. Somebody took something she made and permanently put it on their body. I have new hashtag goals. I don't know what I'm going to create that I want someone to put on their body. I don't know. I'll have to think about it, but I'm going to figure out something. I have a new goal in life, get someone to tattoo. But Sandy Arthur, she is Sandy Spines, the creator of Sandy Spines, and she's got an amazing Etsy store, and you can get 10% off your entire order by using promo code SheSlays. And also, if you're a pediatric and prenatal chiro, you need to listen up to this one. If you want to save time in your clinic from showing stretches and exercises to your prego mamas and babies, you need to get hooked up with the Progressive app by Connected and Inspired Media. So it's this app for your clinic, and it has so many resources for your patients, and it's going to save you time. I promise. And of course, you're going to get a discount. Just mention She Slays and you're going to get 20% off your first month. So there we go. I hooked you up. I'd like to hook you up more. So anyways, on to today's guest. So I found her actually by scrolling the internet. Well, not the internet, Instagram. Who am I kidding? I spend like 90% of when I say the internet, I mean social media. And I was reading her posts and I was like, whoa, wait, is this one of my posts? Like, this sounds just like me. Not in like a weird, she's stealing my content kind of way. That sounded weird. No, but like, and I'm like reading and I'm like, this woman is so on such a similar mission to help chiropractors. I have to talk to her. And so I reached out and we talked and we connected right away. I was like, shit, this woman is like so similar to like what she's saying is so similar to the reason I started the podcast. I have to have her on as a guest. So Dr. Nona Djavid, she migrated to the US from a third world country at the age of 16. She didn't know any English. Can you see how similar we are? No, I'm just joking. She put herself through Berkeley and Life Chiropractic College West. And don't get me started. I think we talk about on the episode how I really wish I would have gone to California for chiropractic school instead of Minneapolis, but whatever. That's more a geographic thing than a diss at Northwestern. I just want to be warm. Why did I pick Minneapolis? Anyway, so she got out of school, established $1 million practice and multiple other businesses. She's a wife, she's a mom, she's an author, she's a speaker. She's become a certified life coach. She's a platinum partner with Tony Robbins, an NLP practitioner, and a chiropractic coach. So her obsession with personal growth and life experience has led her to a life she never thought possible, all because of her mindset. So she and I have such similar paths, not in any of that. I am not cool enough to be a platinum partner with Tony Robbins. But you'll hear she's going to dive a little more into when I ask her about herself, just her story as to how she got to this point. And it's really similar in the sense that she, joined a coaching group, then was like coaching with the coaching group, and then was kind of like, it was time for her to just evolve into a different stage of her life. So her and it just kind of feels like we're soul sisters. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. Just a really bold statement. But speaking of the soul, let's pray before I accidentally forget, and we will get this interview going. Whew, breathe. I get all worked up. Like, I get all excited for like the intro. Like a athlete going into a big, this is not the prayer, just in case you're wondering. And then I like get to the prayer and I'm like, oh shit, you need to like calm yourself a little bit. So breathe. Okay, dear God, if everyone listening is anything like me, they probably need to hear you whisper, slow down right about now. I am so in the thick of the holiday season. I swear even a Jesus is the reason for the season coffee mug doesn't even stop me anymore at this point to pause. Remind me that simply saying, I know Christmas is about more than presents, that's not enough. Just saying it is not enough. And that the season is meant to be enjoyed. You gave us the gift of experiencing joy. This choice to feel at any moment, in any circumstance, regardless of what's going right or wrong. Give me and everyone listening the permission to just be today, to just be right now as they listen, however they are, whoever they are, whatever they are. Earlier this week, I was reminded of the Greek version of love called agape love, and it's meant to describe how you love us just as we are. Without the perfect Christmas card, without the perfect gift, just the hot-ass mess that we show up as. So thank you for loving us. Thank you for giving us this ability to the permission to just be. Amen. So without further ado, my friends, here is Dr. Nona Djavid and I solving the world's problems. Okay, She Slayers. So today we have a little bit of a different twist on things. I think I should have counted which episode this is going to be, but I don't know offhand. We're in the late 20s. That's what I can tell you. And I think I've said today we have a little bit of a different episode, like 6 or 7 times already. I promised that I promised people right from the beginning, like, I am not going to stick to any kind of outline like that. Sometimes I'll have guests, sometimes I'll have questions, sometimes I won't. So today is another little different one because we have a question from a dude. And I didn't get this question. So we have a guest, Dr. Nona Djavid on. Hi, Dr. Nona.
Hey.
Hi. And she's going to do her intro in a little bit, but like I want to explain a little bit about how we got to this conversation. So I always get on the phone with people before I get on Zoom to record, partially because I like to make sure that they're fun to talk to. And you passed.
Fun to talk to. I'm here. I made
it to round 2, the final round. And also I like to pair questions that people write in to the people we're interviewing. So like a lot of podcasts, it's like, okay, I'll have this person on. What do you want to talk about? I'll have this person on. What do you want to talk about? And I kind of combine, because we're a write-in style show, I'll talk to somebody and see what they like talking about and then match a question to that. So then I'm talking to you. You have so many great things. I'm like, oh, we could talk. Oh, yep, I have a question for that. But then you started to kind of talk about this part of your journey that I'll let you share, that I was like, oh, I think I probably interrupted you and was like, I have an idea. Hopefully you're open to it. And I was like, what if we got one of the men that you coach to ask a question, and let's go like from there, because I have like 3 men following the She Slays, so I don't get questions from men. So I was like, you're going to need to provide the question, but I think it'd be really cool because I think so much of this women empowerment movement that's happening, we don't really touch on the fact that like, yeah, guys are going through the same like freedom stuff too, and like not wanting to be chained. And so I just thought it'd be a great help. So without further ado, welcome, Dr. Nona.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me today.
So would you please share with people like you get just used to answering this as being on podcast and interview. Will you give us your spiel on like where your journey, how you got to this point in life?
Yes. So you and I have a very similar story, as in, I think we touched on it when we first talked. I was part of a coaching group as well. And pretty quickly within the first couple, as a matter of fact, I signed up for this coaching group practically as an independent contractor right out of school, literally 6 months after graduation. And it was great for me. And a couple of years into it, I knew all the systems. I was really super successful at what I was doing. And I had not just the chiropractors locally, but just, my classmates, whoever, they would reach out and they'd be like, okay, well, how are you doing this? And so I would coach them. And also within the coaching group, they had asked me to start coaching and start getting involved, the same as yourself. Yep. So I did that for a while, and then there were some things that happened. Not that anything happened. It was just my evolution of where I was going and where I wanted to take my practice. And it just was a different path than I was in. And actually, a lot of it has to do, funny enough, with like the masculine and the feminine shift that was happening as I was evolving as a person and as a chiropractor. So anyhow, I got out of that coaching group and I started to independently start to coach the chiropractors that were coming to me. And when I first started to do that, I was like, I'm going to target women. Mm-hmm. They are my favorite.
Yep. And you're probably thinking like that this previous coaching group's a little too masculine. And so like, I'm going to be more feminine in my evolution, and therefore women are what I'll serve.
Exactly. And I was like, that's it. This is my path. I got to get out of this masculine, salesy, stuff. And I'm going to target women. As a matter of fact, so my husband does like the web design and the web stuff for all of my things. And so if you go on my website, of course, we haven't made all the updates, but the first website that we put together, it was like pictures of women and like a testimonial from all my female clients. And even I think in there, I was like literally female chiropractic coach, right? That's what I wanted to do. And my whole thing, which was part of my journey, was when I switched from going like from that masculine into more of a balance, not necessarily into the feminine, I started to shift into and create this part-time $1 million cash practice. And as a female, I thought, who doesn't want that? Like, what mom or mom to be or female chiropractor wants to work, like drive and work 60 hours a week and be successful, but not be fulfilled or not have any time to spend with your kids, with your family, go on vacation if you're single even, So I thought this has to be a female thing because it was for me.
Right.
And anyhow, I went on and I started to put myself out there as a coach that does that for females. And guess what? One of the first events that I that I was a speaker at, I had, even in the talk, you wouldn't believe this, Lauryn. I was like, the women chiropractors, hold up your hands and who agrees with me and women and chiropractic and da-da-da. And I believe all of that. Right.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm going to stand in the back of the room and all these women are going to come to me and ask me questions. And I didn't have one single woman come up to me and ask me a question. And I thought, this is interesting. I had a line of men that walked up and, throughout the conversations that I was having with them, they were asking questions about, well, how do you create this? How do you work part-time? And how do you really, $1 million working 20 hours a week? Well, how are you doing that? What are you doing with your extra time? Can I do this 80 hours a week and make, 2 million or whatever, or 40 hours, I guess, 2 million, 80 hours and make more. I don't know. And I realized there's this need, in our profession and actually for male chiropractors to, I guess it's not a need, but because our profession is very masculine and every practice management group that exists out there, every coach that exists out there, I always saw them as this two completely different polar opposites, right? They're either majority, 80% are really, really masculine. Mm-hmm. And then there's this 10 to 20% that's like the female coaches in our profession that I hope nobody's offended, but basically, I'm on your podcast. I guess I can say anything, but hopefully this to 10 to 20% of the female chiropractic coaches that exist, they're almost too much in the feminine. And I found that,
or they're not, but they alienate men. They're like, I'm only a female coach. And so they are that really nice, I am a woman, but I can tap into my masculine energy, but then I can tap out. But they only teach other women how to tap into men and women. And so you didn't have anybody teaching the men.
Exactly.
In and out. Yeah.
And there's this huge need for that because what are they taught? What are we all taught? That if you want to succeed in business, you have to be driven. You have to be, go. You have to have strategy. You have to come up with a plan. And yes, I do tend to, and when I first started in business, I was that, like just, and I'm a driver too still, but I am able to balance.
You know what Enneagram type is?
I don't.
Oh, you got to find it out.
I do.
It's really, it's a big thing. I have a feeling you're a 3, but I just typecast people and you're not supposed to.
What are you?
I'm a 3. So I just feel like I see other 3s and I'm like, they tend to be like the need to achieve, succeed type thing.
Oh yeah, that's me. Put me in that category.
Yeah, we'll call you a 3 for this point.
I'm a 3 and then I'll look it up later.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you, and we do it as female chiropractors, and yes, you become successful and you make sales happen and you grow your business and all that, but then you end up not fulfilled or unhappy or left with no time to do anything. And so that's where all these male chiropractors, at least that's what I'm attracting. I'm not claiming that that's everybody or all these male chiropractors are in that category, but every male chiropractor that's come to me has said, this is the situation I'm in. I no longer want to do this. And they don't necessarily know what's going on, like what has happened and what has brought them. They just know that they don't want to be here anymore and they want change.
Yep, absolutely. We touched on it. I know you listened to Devin Vrana's episode number 22 a couple ago. And there was a moment in the beginning where, she kind of blew my mind, and she said like that men all were trained with this same programming of like women are this and men are this. Like they were also brainwashed to believe that like being successful is loud and bigger and powerful and dominant and this and that. And I was like, oh shit. So like I think this is probably happening in lots of different professions, but we're so like chiropractic focused. Women are definitely being louder in this profession going, hey, we're 50%. We don't need to practice your way. And that's cool. And there's been a lot of light being shined on that. But we really haven't shined much of a light on the fact that there's a lot of guys. I've had tons of small conversations with like the guys when I was back in the coaching group. But they're like, yeah, can I have that though too? Even though I'm supposed to be this masculine, loud man, but you said, there's this huge gray or huge need. Like, okay. But I think women, I don't know. I feel like it's going to start to happen. I feel like women needed a little bit of time where it's like, listen, white man over there, like, just give me a second. I don't know, like, just let me get my bearings and be different before you're like, oh, I want to be different too. But I don't know. Would you agree that like, I think it's going to start to happen now. I think we're feeling comfortable as women, like doing a different thing that, I don't know, we don't feel like they're riding our coattails. Or does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And the same, like in the same conversation, the same is true for women on the opposite of the spectrum. Like I coach, I have women, and I don't want to make it sound like I only have, male chiropractors, but there are women that I work with or that have approached me also that are, kind of also too much in the feminine, and they're actually unable to get out of that and balance out or bring in some masculine in order to make their businesses successful. Mm-hmm. Right. So there's also that, because in the feminine, you've got the creativity and you've got the go with your instinct and the connection. That's the connection part of it. So if you are too much into that, you don't know how to create strategy and structure and systems and all this other stuff that's more masculine, then you end up with a practice that's not profitable. Yeah,
that's true. That is a super good point. Because I have had people write in who are like, I really thought I wanted to work with kids, because that's what we, kind of have that stereotype of like women love to have prenatal and pediatric practices. And I have girls or women who've written in being like, I don't know that I really like working with kids. And it's almost like, or they're asking like, I don't know that I want to have kids right away. Like they almost feel bad that they want a high volume practice.
They're writing to you to ask for permission almost. Mm-hmm. Does not feel like that? Like, is it okay? I don't want to work with kids. And I get that too.
Yeah.
Or I don't want to have kids.
Yeah. Okay, don't shoot me for asking this question. It's kind of an asshole question, but it's something that's been floating around in my head for a while. So you and I have such crazy similar stories. But so I started in practice and hustled my ass off. Like I was working, blah, 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 blah. And so a lot of your questions, or a lot of the questions that I get, and I think a similar thing, is people wanting to pivot once they've gotten, so there's this like, I've gotten the successful practice and I'm not happy, and they want to pivot. But I don't want to phrase this. Do you think that there's kind of a necessary time of life where you just do need to hustle? Like you come out of school with loans. So it's like I worked my butt off for 3-4 years. Paid off my loans in 5 years. And then it was like year 6 where I'm like, oh shoot, I don't know that I like this, and started making changes. And I think that's where a lot of people come to you also, of like, where they're like, shoot, I'm making money. And then they have this freedom to pivot. But like, what would you say to somebody who's like super in debt? And like, would you tell them to only work 20 hours a week?
No, I wouldn't. And that's kind of a two-part question. So
yeah, I'm proud of you for even figuring out what the question was.
I might forget in a little bit. After I answer the first part, we may have to go back to it. But so the first part is, okay, yes, when you're first out of school, there's okay, I shouldn't say there's no way you can like create a foundation on 20 hours. Is it possible? Probably. If you think it's possible, let's put it that way. If you think it's doable, then it's doable. Anything is possible. Anything is possible. But I think that definitely, I mean, when you're right out of school, that's when the hustle happens. Mm-hmm. How long you're going to hustle, that's got to do with you and a lot of other factors and what, what's going on with your life in general. For me, I definitely had to hustle in the first year before I felt established. And, year 3 is when I switched into part-time.
Got it.
Now, the second thing is, I think that we move in cycles and phases, right? So and I read something, don't ask me about this because it was a while ago, but something about men moving differently. Like, I think they move in phases, we move in cycles. I don't remember. But in any case, I feel that there is this thing where it's like about every 10 years or so. So you can either include some of chiropractic school into that or not, like 10 years in practice or 10 years of doing something. That's when it's like, okay, I have made this perfect, or I know how to, dial it up and dial it down. I can go on vacation and come back. It loses its challenge, if you would. Mm-hmm. And you start to be like, okay, like, is this really what I want to be doing? Or is this the right way of doing it? Or I am bored, mm-hmm. or I'm burnt out, or, and I personally think it's a 10-year thing, because I've seen it in people in my life, my friends, family members, my husband, where it's like, okay, it must be your 10-year mark. Like, let's figure out how to make this exciting again. Yep,
I can see that. Did you answer both parts? Do you remember the second part?
I don't know.
If you remember later, you are totally free to stop and go, oh, I remembered. I do that all the time. Okay, let's dig into this question. You have it, right?
I do. Do you want to read it over?
No, I think that we go fully weird with this, and I let you read it.
Okay, fully weird.
Fully weird.
So I had a question from a male chiropractor. And the question is it a question? It's more of a statement. It looks like I have had a ton of male coaches or with practice management groups that are driven by sales and scripts, and it just isn't me. I have done it for so long and with so much success, and now I'm afraid to change, but I want more out of my practice. And I guess it is a statement, and I know that, for example, this particular person that has asked this question is actually massively successful. So it's not a matter of
it's not working. It's not that the sales and scripts aren't working. It's more of a happiness, authenticity factor, probably.
That's exactly it is.
And I do feel like I feel bad for the practice management groups out there that get scripts have such a negative stigma with them. But scripts, when done, when they don't feel authentic, are bad. And honestly, if you are memorizing like you're an actor, a script, then yeah. But I don't know if it wasn't working for sure. I mean, again, he's looking for more happiness, and I'm wondering where you would have him start to pivot. But I do want to say there is a time and place. You said when you joined the practice management group that you kind of got some systems and it helped you grow. My experience was the same. I kind of took what I wanted, but then the difference is you and I realized okay, cool. I've taken what I wanted, I've made it work for me, and now I'm ready to move on. And that's where I kind of see him too. Yeah. So what would you start with? Where would you jump off with this question?
So, okay, I think it comes down to core values and authenticity, right?
I love talking core values.
Right? Nothing better, because once you know what your core values are, you can literally make every decision off of them and say no to so many things, including whether it's in your business, like, oh, my core value is, I don't know, my core value for my business even is to see families or kids, right? Mm-hmm. If that's the case, you're going to say no to so many marketing opportunities, because they're outside of your core value. And that's definitely the way to go about creating, things and systems inside of your practice. So one, and then two is the authenticity. Like you touched on the script thing. I actually like having scripts or bullet points, and I help my clients create their own. I don't give them the samples. Listen, if you want my scripts, I can give you my scripts. If you want samples of other people have created, I can give them to you, but I don't give them to you until you create your own and sit down and you create those based on your core values. Not only that, if you're going to create a script about, say, I don't know, what is a subluxation and how it affects your organs, or whatever your thing is, your philosophy on subluxations or chiropractic, then does your team believe every word that you are saying? And what are their core values when it comes to your business and when it comes to chiropractic? So it's like breaking it down layer after layer. And
so
then
how different do you feel like your business core values are from like your personal core values?
Well, there's some overlap, but really they're different, because business core values would be like, okay, in my practice, they has to do for sure with who is your target audience and what you are willing to do in that practice and what you're not. Like, where are your boundaries? Like this is a thing in chiropractic. You got to bring your spouse to the ROF, right? Like some of the practice management groups. But what is your core value in that business? Are you seeing, say, you're in the downtown San Francisco, and all of your patients and your target audience is young, single, sit at a desk all day kind of person? Well, then that's not gonna apply to you. And so that's the problem with the practice management groups, is they'll create a box and they'll be like, you got to do this and this and this. And I don't know about your practice management group, but like when you try to make it your own and you're like, oh, I like this piece and I want to say it this way. No. And then if you go back to them and be like, hey, this didn't work when I did it, then you are at fault, right? Yep. Oh, yep. You stepped outside the box.
Yeah.
And so they're telling you that you failed because you're being yourself.
Yep. You didn't deliver it right. You didn't do it enough. You need to just double down on it. I think that one of my core values for my business, so I'm really good at knowing my core values for my personal. I actually have we did a core values episode specifically because soapbox here. I don't want to forget what my actual point is. I really dislike when I go like, what are your core values? And they're like, oh yeah. What were they? I figured them out before. And I'm like, okay, this is not a good start. Obviously, these were not like touching enough to you that you remembered them. And then they're like, I think it was like family, health, success. And I'm like, hold on, let me guess. Faith? And they're like, yeah, something like, and I'm like, okay, so you got to like step one. And so I have this whole worksheet for people that helps them at least personally. I should create one for business too, but yeah. But it helps them go past it. It's like, okay, those are the 4 categories. And then you need to decide what your core value is within that category, because everybody gets stuck on like, well, I'm not going to pick adventure over God, or I'm not going to pick financial stability over my children. So they just go with the ones that they feel like, well, I guess I should choose my health over like whatever, and so it's like, right. But my point was I haven't really figured out my business ones.
And I think that, and you can, if you wouldn't mind coaching me in this scenario, I think that one of my core values would be around like the boundaries, or at least one of the boundaries I set is if I wouldn't do it. And I know that a lot of people use this as an excuse to not do something they're uncomfortable with. So this is where
are you talking about, okay, I need clarification.
Yes.
So you mean
with bringing the spouse. So like, for instance, I would look at like, if somebody said like, oh, you need to bring the spouse, I would go like, okay, if I were at my dentist's office and it's going to be a male in this scenario, said like, so now tomorrow we're going to talk about what we found and we're going to be talking money. So, and all the like practice management coaches are going, well, you wouldn't say it like this. Anyway, and they're like, so you need to bring your husband. I would be like, excuse me? No. And so I go like, no, we're not going to. So there's lots of different things. The new patient orientation, like you must have a new patient orientation. It can be once a week or twice a month. I built $1 million practice having new patient orientations, and they're at 6 p.m. and it is mandated before you can. I'll be like, F you. Nobody can see me, but I am double fingers up, hands high here of like, come on, I have enough shit. Just take my money and adjust my spine, talk to me, train me, but I'm not coming at 6 o'clock at night and taking family time away. So like some people would go, well, those are excuses because you don't want to do those.
Okay, no, I wouldn't say they are excuses, but I would encourage you to go deeper on from the surface of like, if I wasn't gonna do it. Now, I am super neutral with what you want to do because that's my whole thing is like, I'm going to help you create the practice and the systems that are aligned with you, not the ones that I had the spouse to come in, but I'm not going to recommend you to have the spouse come in because otherwise it's going to be fake. If you don't truly, again, find the core values and decide based on that. Now, if you say, I wouldn't do it, then why would I ask somebody else to do it? Let's go with the spouse thing. Okay. So you're right. And I wouldn't bring my spouse to that same dentist. Are you kidding? No, it's like, I'll either walk out or I'll hand you my credit card. Like I'll throw you my credit card.
Right. I'll actually get a stack of $10 bills and make it rain.
Yes, I like that. I would do that. But at the same time, so let's say your core values in your practice is that you want kids, and bulk of your practice is families or whatever, and you want to focus on seeing the kids. But let's say where you are is you're seeing a lot of moms, you're seeing some dads, and maybe the kids are not, and that's not the bulk of your practice currently, but you really want it that way because I see this kid, they start under chiropractic care. The entire trajectory of their life is going to be completely different than seeing an adult for neck pain or back pain, right? Okay. So let's say that's the kind of practice you have and your core value is kids. And you are going report of finding after report of finding with these moms and these dads that are coming in, and they're signing up, you're converting, but they're not bringing their kids in. Okay. Now, what can I implement in order for this mom and this dad to get together and we've seen it. I mean, all of us have seen it, right? The mom will come in and be like, I really want my kids to come in, but the dad, or the dad will come in and be like, I think my kids should come and see you. Or if they're separated, there's so many different scenarios, but basically these kids don't get to come in. And if that's your core value and that tugs at your heart every time that this kid is not in your practice, every time you see a mom and she has 2 little kids and they're not in your practice, if that's you, then what is your solution for bringing in, for making sure that the kids are getting checked? Okay, you can implement the whole, the first week your family gets in check, but how are you doing at that? Let's say you were killing it at that. And then if you were killing it at that, you would have kids coming in. Then you don't need the spouse to come in. Okay. But let's say you've implemented all these different ways and that hasn't worked out. Okay. Well, let's dig deep a little bit on this bringing the spouse thing. Yeah, I would if I went to a chiropractor, knew nothing about chiropractic, which is kind of hard to imagine even. But if I was like, I have neck pain and I have lower back pain, and I sat down with them and they were like, okay, yeah, we can fix you. Here are your x-rays, da-da-da. And they said, it's $2,500. This is me sitting here today, right, with my financial situation and everything. I'd say, okay, $2,500, $2,500, I'll just go ahead and pay it. Now, if I go in and if I have neck pain and back pain, and then they talk to me about chiropractic and they see me, then I'm like, wait a second, I also have this and that and the other and this my whole life. And then there's my kids. Like, this sounds really important, right? Mm-hmm. And then I go for the report of finding and they say, oh, you're really messed up. You got to do this and and here's chiropractic and it's great, this big idea. And they say, oh, you got two things. If they say, oh, you got to pay $4,000, I might be like, oh, I do have to talk to my husband. I'm going to do it, but I'm going to talk to my husband. But the second idea, going back on tangent, but like, let's say that this same person, I get this big idea, and if it doesn't occur to me to bring my husband and I come in, then I just get in the routine of things and I don't think I got to bring my kids. But guess what? If right off the bat, after that first session, I get the big idea and I'm like, you know what, and you say to me, your spouse has got to be there. And I agree with you because of what I understood about the big idea. Then I'm like, fudge, I gotta bring my husband needs to be here because the kids, everybody needs to he needs care, whatever.
Nona, okay, fine, I'll consider it. All right, fine. Because it is one of our biggest one of the biggest things that gets in the way of conversions is like, we're not in like a wealthy area at all. The median income in our county is $44,000 for a family. Mm-hmm. So when you are recommending a $1,500 care plan, like, yeah, no kidding, they got to talk to their husbands. Oh, okay. I do want to point out, I've totally hijacked this. So we need to return to the poor man's question. I'm going to rename She Slays the Day, Lauryn Gets Counseling. Because I did this for like the Enneagram one where I'm just like, but what about me? Okay. So step one, you would recommend to this guy, you got to figure out your core values.
Got to figure out your core values. And funny enough, this was a man that came up to me after I did a talk at a seminar, right? And I was like, what I did at that seminar, I'm going to get off tangent now, but what I did at that seminar is like, you know what, I'm going to try something different. I'm going to have my audience do an exercise, and I was like feeling kind of iffy about it. I was like, are they going to do it? And last minute, my husband's like, skip the exercise part. And I was like, oh, I can't believe you just said that, because I was going to do it. And then I ended up doing it, right? I ran them through this thing where they figured out what their core values were. And that was the thing that stuck with this gentleman. He came up to me after it and he was like, I realized, I've done this whole core value thing before, but I realized my personal core values are obviously is going to be my family. Like, my family is number one. And now I'm noticing that because I've been go as building this massive practice, I haven't spent, his kids are about to leave the house, and he's like, I'm looking back at the last 20, 30 years of hard work. And yes, I've provided for them private schools, vacations, and their future is set. However, what have I missed out on? Like being with my wife, being with my kids, having that present time consciousness and not having to like think about your business every second of every day. And I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, you were talking about like step one is figuring out the core values and
figuring out the core values. Yes. So he said to me, my family is my core values, but I've never thought about building my business around the core values or around the life that I want to have. So first it would be like, okay, Lauryn or this gentleman, figure out what it is what kind of life you want to live. Like moving forward, I want to work less. I want to make more money, or maybe I want to make the same amount of money. I want to, be able to leave my practice and then come back and not have to worry about my numbers. Mm-hmm. I want my practice to run itself. I have another office that do heavy spinal screenings. And one of the owners was like, part of what I want to create is that I don't have to do spinal screenings. Okay, well, based on what you want and the life that you want to create, excuse me, we're going to come up with a plan of action and the systems in your practice that allow you to, to have this focus on these core values.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So first come up with your life and that you want, and then create the practice, not the other way around, where that's what we've been taught to do. Create this practice and then figure out how to survive.
So then how do you pivot then? So you figure out the core values. You have this, this person who asked the question. He's got a massively successful clinic. How does he start pivoting?
Okay.
Is it like hiring an associate? Like
it would depend on good question. What would we do? So the mechanics of it are going to be different for every person. But like with this person, I would sit down and be like, okay, well, you are doing, for example, let's say if he was doing a lot of spinal screenings or a ton of money he's spending on like online marketing or whatever the case may be, or maybe he's not doing that. He's doing too much spinal screening. How much time are you spending spinal screenings? How much time are you spending lunch and learns? Okay, well, what if we took those away and how much money are you spending on that? Literally picking it apart and being like, how much money are you spending on that? Okay, well, can you spend this in online marketing? Okay. Mm-hmm. And free up that time for yourself. And also on the other side, looking at the core values of their business. Well, if you're running heavy on these spinal screenings, let's say, if that was the case for them, then that means your retention is not good because you're not getting enough referrals.
Yeah.
Your wellness base is not set. If you want to be able to step away from your practice, your wellness patients, your maintenance patients should be able to pay for your overhead. So if you're not doing that, then guess what? We got to change up things in the practice, right? And if looking at your core values for your business is going back to the example that we had, if it's kids, then guess what? Maybe we do need to dig a little bit deeper and see, okay, well, how can we make sure that we are getting those kids as referrals instead of going out and doing spinal screenings at the farmer's market?
Mm-hmm. How fast do you think you can pivot a brand? So like, let's say this guy, part of what he doesn't like is they're very PI heavy. And we have some non-chiros that stands for personal injuries. So it's basically like work comp and auto injuries. And that is a very lucrative, for the most part. And in some states, it's much more lucrative than others. Where Wisconsin, like looking over at Minnesota, Minnesota's a huge PI state. But so let's say he said like, they pay, but like, how do I start? Like all of his marketing is in PI. And we're really going down a rabbit hole of specificity, but I think people could apply this in different ways. Like how quickly would you recommend, like what would be the steps of the timeline of like, all right, you don't want to market to PI anymore? And he's like, no, I don't want to market to PI anymore. I want to market to like boomers who want to like live wellness and all that jazz.
Yeah. So the answer is yes, it depends. So I guess if someone came to me and they were in that situation, it's like, okay, well, how deep is your desire to go from PI to this totally opposite of the spectrum? And how fast are you willing to implement? And, your speed of implementation, right? Like if we decide on something, like, are you going back to the practice and putting it in literally that same day? I would say, and a good average in that extreme example would be about a year that it would take that they could transition, because you're right. Like, and going from PI to like completely cash. What I would encourage someone like that, if they came to me and if they're running because I'm not just looking at, okay, this is what you want, let's do all this other, but I need it to be profitable. I'm the type A that's like looking at the numbers and making sure that we're measuring everything, right? So I wouldn't necessarily recommend that they do it right away either, per se. I might suggest, okay, well, you've lost your purpose because you've seen so much PI. What can we do in this existing practice to give you that fire, or to give you that purpose back in a PI practice? And I've done that too. Mm-hmm. And I think, but if it was a smaller shift, like, okay, I'm seeing I don't know, like random people, and I want to switch to kids with autism, something like that, then I would say that also depends on you, how fast you want to go. And I always say that speed of implementation. Like if you just, the people that are massively successful, they're making decisions right and left. And that decision could be a no, it could be a yes, but it's never a maybe. And it's usually right away, right? Like, oh, maybe, because the longer you think about something, that speed of implementation, if it's taking you a long time to decide, oh, am I going to do a workshop or am I going to have the spouse to come in? Then you start to talk yourself out of it or into something else. And we tend to do that as human beings. And so it never gets done.
Oh my gosh. I just have to repeat what you said. Like, massively successful people are making decisions and it's a yes or a no, but it's never a maybe. Like, that is, yep. There we go. Podcast over. No, I mean, that's great. It is so true because we like to sit and like, him and haw, and you're just freaking wasting time. Yeah. Okay. So on that, clarify. Hold on. You had said something that I wanted to clarify. So did you say that in this PI, this extreme example that I totally did not prepare you? I was going to give you it all. I'm so sorry. I always tell people on the show, I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth, but if I can really catch you off guard, we can just edit it out. So did you say that you might try and get their purpose back for the current clinic that they have? Is that what you kind of said? That might be the first step to see hey, instead of this, can we get you excited about this thing that you already have done successfully?
So not exactly like that. Okay. How I would do it is if they were totally PI, they're coming in, they're super successful, and it's okay, I want to see something completely different. Then I look at it from a business perspective as well as from okay, I want to hold your hand and take you there because that's what you want. But let me get deep. Let's figure out why you want that and what's missing here so that as we're making the transition, maybe we can still have, instill some fire in you, as you are transitioning into this other thing that's completely different than that you want. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So digging deeper and figuring out, okay, what's missing from this practice that's super successful? I know, I get it. You really want to be here in point B, but what can we in the process, as let's say if it was going to take a year, in this 1 year, today, what can you do today to have some fire so that you don't come home and you're exhausted? You
don't have to be miserable for the next year as you ideally transition to this practice that will hopefully bring you fulfillment and success. But what I like about you digging deeper in the beginning versus okay, let's just start flipping your brand, is because there's totally a potential that they do all of this change, get to this other place. They put in all this work. Maybe they've lost money. Maybe it's improved. Who knows? But then they're also still not happy because you didn't ask the questions in the beginning.
Exactly.
Yep. I like that. I like that a lot. Well, this is okay. So basically for this guy, we go, well, it depends.
Yes.
But figuring out core values, figuring out what you don't like about what you've currently been doing, dig deeper. Is there anything that, really finding out what he doesn't like about the current situation, seeing if there are small changes as he pivots out into more freedom, assuming that's kind of what he was asking you wants. And then go from there. I mean, that's a lot of homework for him in the beginning of figuring out. I know you talked about walking an audience through figuring out their core values. Can you
you're going to have me do that exercise. I
mean, we don't know if it's 20 minutes, but can you kind of hit the high points or whatever for people?
The one particular exercise that I did, it wasn't one that I made up. And I sourced it in the talk, but I don't remember where I got it off the top of my head. But it basically is okay, so the way that you one of the ways that you find your personal core values is you think of a time in your life where you really struggled. Okay. And, sometimes you have to hit the bottom before you actually decide to come out of it, right? Like in the middle of going towards the bottom, you don't do anything, you know, small changes, and then like you're bottom, then it's like, okay, I'm done and I got to do something different. So you got to think of a time in your life where you did something like that, or that was or you went through a struggle that was important and you came out of it. And what did you notice about yourself? Like what was important to you? Why did you want to come out of it? And what did you learn from it? Right. So for me, I'll give you an example. For me, I actually moved to this country when I was 16. Okay. So I didn't speak a word of English. And I was thrown in high school right away. Like we arrived in LAX. 2 weeks later, they're like, oh, now you're in high school and you're a senior in high school, you know, because I had taken all these courses or whatever. And I didn't speak a word of English. So for 2 months, I practically did not speak at all because I was afraid that what I was going to say was going to be wrong or someone's going to make fun of me. I mean, throw in there like all the hormones of teenage years, culture shock, all of that. And anyways, I worked really, really hard at learning English, surrounding myself with English speaking, like Native Americans, native speaking. There's my second language coming out, right? Yep. And so I worked really hard. I mean, like for every textbook that I got in high school, I would literally sit through and like open up a dictionary and figure out what the words were, try to understand everything. And then at the same time, it was a time where I felt a lot, and I think we all do when you're in high school and you're like getting ready to go to college. I felt very trapped in my family and in my culture and whatnot as a female also. And so I remember like that was a really hard time in my life. And coming out of that, the thing that I remember was like, okay, I got this acceptance letter from Berkeley. And it was like, wow, two things, which happened to have to do with my core values at the time, was like, okay, I got this acceptance letter. It was the best moment of my life. I opened it up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to move away and have freedom because you know, I come from a third world country and we have to, like women are I mean, it's a whole nother world. So that's a whole nother podcast.
Mm-hmm. Let's do that one. Yeah.
And so that was like freedom was definitely something that I was craving and that I didn't have. And then the other was hard work for me. Like, okay, it pays off to work hard. And so I had my audience go through and partner up and they would tell a story as that. And then the person that was listening with some good, you know, listening skills would be like, oh, I hear, you know, that this is. And so they did that. And I had people, this particular audience was, you know, maybe about 250, I want to say 90% male. It was it was a technique seminar and it was a lot of male chiropractors. And I had all these male chiropractors like writing out their core values and, you know, and I was surprised. Again, this is more recently. I mean, I've been doing this for a while and I was like, oh, they're not going to want to do it. And I did it. And then the men that came up to me afterwards, they were like, I did that core value exercise and this is what I got out of it. There was so much sharing. And honestly, I was proud. I have to say, as a female who's on the feminist side, you know, I was really proud of these men for really taking on and fully participating, being open, and also for accepting me as a female coach. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that's I don't know. I just feel really blessed to be able to have that.
Yeah. I love that exercise. I've never heard it before. And I know you said like you didn't make it up, but like still like, thank you for sharing that because that is cool. And it does like, I'm really bad at active listening. And so like, as you were talking, I'm like, naturally going through like, what experience would I do? Okay, that. And then I'm like, I'm still listening. I'm like, so yeah, I would definitely say that's a core value of mine. I'm like, so very, very cool. Dr. Nona, this has been just wonderful.
tell people where they can get more of you.
Yeah, they can connect with me, on all the social media stuff, Facebook.
What's your handle? Tell them your handle.
What is my handle? Okay, yes, I'm still on Instagram. Chiro.mom is my handle on Instagram. And they can look me up on Facebook or go to my website. Just my first name, my last name, Nona, and my last name is Djavid, and the D is silent. And they can reach out. I encourage them to reach out, and especially female chiropractors.
Yeah.
And because I've been through it all, and I can share my experience.
Yeah, I definitely like your style a lot. And I think that there's a lot of very, I don't want to say masculine females, because I'd like for us to start figuring out different terminology for what we really mean. And I don't have that terminology now. So for now, I'm just going to be blunt and say, I think there's very air quotes here, masculine females who would love for you to help. Okay, that's not when I'm at my best, but it is a strength and all of that. And it's just beautiful. So, and then obviously if you are listening, go to our Facebook page or our Instagram, and we'll have all of her info tagged and all of that. So, oh my gosh. Thank you again. Thank you so, so much. And until next week, She Slayers. Bye.